Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Sing it.
Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. In my heart, Lord, please, 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 in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. In my walk, Lord, please, in my walk. In my walk, Lord, please, in my walk. In my walk, Lord, please, in my walk. In my walk, Lord, please, in my walk.
Sing it,
Lord,
Lord.
I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. In my talk, Lord, please, in my talk. In my talk, Lord, please, in my talk.
In my
In my
talk,
talk, Lord, please, in my talk.
in my
In my talk, Lord, please, in my talk.
sing it,
Lord,
Lord.
I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart.
In my life, Lord.
Lord, please, in my life. In my life, Lord, please, in my life. In my life, Lord, please, in my life. In my life, Lord, please, in my life. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart. Lord, I wanna be a Christian in my heart.
In my
In
life,
my life, Lord, please, in my life. In my life, Lord, please, in my
in my
life.
life, Lord.
In my life, Lord, please, in my life.
In my life,
In my life, Lord, please, in my
all through
life.
my life.
In my life, Lord, please, in my life.
Every day.
In my life,
Oh,
Lord, please, in my
in my
life.
life.
In my life, Lord, please, in my life.
In my life.
In my life, Lord.
Good morning, my dear friends. We are so grateful that we have this privilege to come into your home and inspire you in some positive way, especially in times such as these. Today, we will be dealing with a subject that I think all of us need and what the world really needs. It was in 1984 that a young woman by the name of Tina Turner wrote one of the most popular songs that we've had in time. He said, "What's love got to do with it?" Just what does love have to do with it? How important is love to the things that you and I perform every day? I think the most obvious answer: love has everything to do with it. Love, beloved, is what it's all about. From the beginning of time until Christ returns. And even after that, it's all about love. I want to go on record and tell you that love is not just merely a second-hand emotion. But real love is the exercise of the will to build up the other, even at the expense of ourselves. Love is far superior to the giftedness because it enables us to fulfill God's command to us to love one another. In the book of Matthew, chapter 22, we find lawyers asking the Lord about the greatest commandment. They wanted to know the one that stands alone as a beacon under which all the other laws are pale in comparison. The lawyer is looking for a solitary answer. Yet Jesus refuses to name only one. For Christ, the love of God and neighbor are inseparable. Jesus said to the lawyer, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest commandment and the first commandment." Then he said the second is likened to the first. You shall love your neighbor. Did you hear that? You should love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hang all the laws and the prophets. To get a grip, a more firmer grip on the depth of this love that God has for you and I, the book of Hosea was written to illustrate and demonstrate this fact. This book is literally a message of salvation to a spiritual bankrupt people. During the days of Hosea's ministry, Israel was a very prosperous nation, both politically and materially. But they were morally corrupt. They were morally bankrupt. Our text describes their spiritual condition. In the book of Hosea, chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, he said, "Who looks to other gods and who love flagons of wine?" If you add in chapter 4, he says, "For the spirit of the whoredoms hath caused them to err. They have gone astray, whoring from under the God of heaven." As we begin this story, Hosea was a grieving lover. urging for the return of his beloved, who was left with multiple lovers. Despite, I want you all to get this, despite the infidelity, the lover, Hosea, was relentless in pursuing to bring her back. He was determined to pay any price that would bring his beloved Gomer back to his side. Might I suggest this morning, there is nothing unusual about a man loving a woman enough to marry her. There is no mystery when a woman gives her hand to be united to a man until death do them part. But I want to put something here that I want you to grab. This particular story is a very unusual. It's a relationship that very few people will ever have. Hosea chapter 1 and verse number 2. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, "Go and marry a prostitute, so some of her children will be born to you from other men." The objective here was to illustrate the way God wanted us to understand how his people have been untrue to him, openly committing adultery against the Lord by worshiping other gods. What God told Hosea to do, I don't know about you, but it just don't make sense. It's totally illogical, but that's the main point. God's love to Israel didn't make any common sense. But church, let me say something to you. God does strange things at times, things that are beyond our understanding, things we can't compartmentalize, things that don't fit into the situation that we have assumed it should. It is a human mistake to think that everything God asks us to do will be easy and comprehensible. Isaiah 55. Remember what the prophet said of God. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts your thoughts. Beloved, again, most of us have a hard enough time trying to figure out what we want to eat for dinner, let alone to figure out what God really wants in our lives. Many of us think that God will send us something clear, a message, and they say that you can look for it in the heavens, you can look for it in various places. But I want to remind you, Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse number 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for you to prosper, plans that nothing will harm you, plans that will help you have a beautiful future. But it's a mistake to think that we will always understand what God is up to. We have to consider our present situation to give you an illustration. Because what we see in our society today really doesn't make that much sense. We see a decade of rampant with anxiety because 232,000 people have died of this corona. We look at our society and we see division all over our country. We see people hating one another. We see mass shootings. We see online theft identity. We see the most, shall I say, jarring and bitter thing that I've ever dreamed that I would ever see: intimidation when it comes down to voting. And we wonder at times, when these things occur, it may appear that God has acted some way that's contrary to his character. Because how could a powerful God, a loving God, a God that plans for our future, a God that wants the best for us, to allow such a situation to occur? So we come up with what we call the strange, unusual thing that's being done by God. But when you look at history, brothers and sisters, it was a strange thing when God asked Abraham to slay his only begotten son, Genesis 22, verses 1 and 2. It was a strange thing when God told Moses to stretch out his rod over the Red Sea to part the waters, Exodus 14:21. In Numbers 22:28, it was a strange thing when God spoke through the mouth of the donkey or jackass to save an unsaved prophet's life. It was in Genesis 6:13, a strange thing that God did when he asked Noah to build a boat 3-foot football field length and to tell them that it was going to rain. Oh, it was a strange thing in Leviticus 16 and 19 when God asked the Jews to slaughter animals so that the blood can be shed for the atonement of our sins. It was a strange thing when the walls of Jericho fell down by remote control as they marched around the building giving a shout, Joshua 6:20. Listen, this is not the first time that God has asked a prophet to do something as strange as to marry a harlot. Ezekiel was also asked to preach to a valley of dry bones that they would come together. And who can ever forget? This is so important for us to remember. When it came down to Jesus, he asked the prophet of prophets to die on a 6x9 piece of wood for the sins of the world. But the Bible said God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. It's a strange thing. But here in the text this morning, let me hurry and get to some points that are critically important for you to get a hold of what I'm trying to say today. In the text this morning, God called Hosea to do something strange but powerful. You and I have been summoned to witness a wedding. We have been summoned to see a prophet and a prostitute send a message to the world that you and I could never ignore. This is one of those strange things, because when the Lord first began to speak to Israel through Hosea, he said, go marry a prostitute, so some of her children will be born of you, from other men. This will illustrate, God's intent was to illustrate the way my people have been untrue to me, openly committing adultery against the Lord by worshiping other gods. But let's look at the prophet, because the prophet here in this Bible represents the love and faithfulness of God. It is evident now that the arranged marriage was commissioned to be a visible, physical symbol of behavior and activity by a nation of Israel as it related to the relationship with God. God, again, over and over, I keep trying to tell you, God was trying to tell and show them something at the same time. He was trying to let you know what love had to do with it. God used a prophet. And I look at the prophet and I say, what a man, what a man, what a man. This man who had more love than hatred. This man, more blessings than bitterness. This was a lover that had more patience than pity. He demonstrated obedience to the fullest of degree. The Bible lets us know he has submitted himself to God, and as a result was a mantle he wore as courage, along with dedication and commitment to woman he knew that was going to step out on him. He knew she was going to cheat. He knew she was going to leave him. He knew she was going to go downtown to Skid Row and end up in Heartbreak Hotel. He knew when he saw the kids that they didn't have the same eyes and the same ears that he had. But the Bible said in obedience, he loved her. Oh, what a man, what a man, what a man. In other words, it's not our love that sustains our commitment. It's our commitment that sustains our love. This is what the book of Hosea is all about. God has told Hosea that Israel has broken their covenant with him and was guilty of infidelity. Now God tells Hosea, in spite of her adulterous ways, get a hold of this now. In spite of her adulterous ways, and because I love her, although she has committed the great whoredom, departing from me, I will have mercy if she repents. Verse 23 of chapter 2 says, I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I call not my loved one. I will say to those called not my people, you are my people. And they will say, you are my God. Oh, I would to God that people would wake up this day. Don't you understand? God has always been a merciful God. God has always been a loving God. And here's what God is looking for in times like these. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, turn from their hatred, turn from their prejudice, turn from wickedness, turn from lying, turn from cheating, turn for rebellion and anti-Christ, or shall I say, these shootings that are going on. Then will I hear. What would you do? I will hear from heaven. I'll forgive their sins and I'll heal their lands. If you want America to prosper again, if you want to be able to go where we want to go, we want the hospitals that are filled with people with coronavirus. If you want this to change, somebody is going to have to repent. Yes. Now, my lesson will continue this coming Sunday. I will hope to bring to you the prostitute, because the prostitute represents unfaithfulness. So tune in next week. It's Sunday coming, and we will have part 2. I can't wait to share it with you, because I believe that love has everything to do with it.
Oh,
show me the way. Oh, show me the way.
Set them down. And I need your power to show me the way. One more time, show me the way. Show